Just sit here. They all have copies of those documents. Can you get some of this? Yeah, please, take a seat. Or you can pull it up a little bit. Doesn't matter.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Everybody ready? I know I've seen some of you before, but I'm Les Weisbrod, and this is Kirk Johnson, Congresswoman Eddie Bernice Johnson's son. We're happy to be here today to announce the resolution of all matters between the facility and Baylor Scott and White and the family, and to announce the formation of the Eddie Bernice Johnson Lives Foundation, as well as talk about the renaming of a nursing scholarship program in Eddie Bernice Johnson's name by Baylor. Shortly after our last press conference on this matter, Baylor came to us and suggested creation of a charitable foundation to continue on the work of Eddie Bernice Johnson. And I'm going to let Kirk talk about that foundation in a few minutes. In addition, it was Baylor's idea to rename a nursing scholarship program after Eddie Bernice. So we were very happy that Baylor worked with us on this matter. And I think one of the important things here is that sometimes the court of public opinion can be more powerful than the court of law, particularly when we're dealing with these unfair caps on damages in medical malpractice death cases. So not too long after we had our initial press conference, there was an article in the Sunday edition of the Dallas Morning News entitled "The Price of Life, Congresswoman's Death is Drawing Attention to Texas Malpractice Caps. With a $250,000 limit in Texas, lawyers are skeptical of taking malpractice cases." So we have a lot more work to do. Congresswoman, as many of you know, was like a sister to me. We'd known each other really pretty much all my life since I was 15 years old. And my father was her accountant. I was her personal lawyer, basically from the time I graduated law school, which was a long time ago. We're talking 45 years. And there's a lot of emotion that went with this. But one of the things you heard at Congresswoman's funeral was that her mantra was do the work. And we have a lot more work to do with regard to these caps, because the Congresswoman, while she would be, I think, happy with the resolution because it's a peaceful resolution that didn't involve having to actually file a lawsuit, the Congresswoman would want to know that others were going to be able to benefit from what we're doing, and that others that are facing this cap for the death of a loved one from medical malpractice might have an opportunity to see those caps increased. And, if her passing and what we're doing leads to that, then I think that's something that she would look down upon favorably. So in that regard, our work has just begun, and we want, again, what happened to Congresswoman Johnson to underscore that these caps are unfair and inappropriate, and they discriminate against elderly, retired Texans. They discriminate against housewives. They discriminate against the young. And this is not a single party thing. This is a bipartisan thing. It affects Democrats and Republicans. And so going forward, we're looking for a bipartisan solution to increase those caps to at least keep up with inflation. And we're looking for Republican help and sponsors to work with us on this. It's going to take a lot of work. I'm not unrealistic about the prospects. It's going to be very difficult, but we need help from other organizations and from particularly Republican legislators. And so that's one of the things that we hope will come out of this. I am going to answer questions for you, but I will tell you that the details of the resolution we will not discuss and we won't go over the allegations that we went over in the prior press conference, because we are in the peace camp at this point, the peace tent. And we've reached the resolution. It's an excellent resolution considering the caps that are in place in the state of Texas. And it's a resolution that will allow the family to do good in the Congresswoman's name and carry on a lot of the things that she was interested in through this foundation. And of course, she was a nurse herself. And so to have a program, and we've handed out a sheet that describes the nursing program. It's a scholarship program. It's intended for nurses that are already working full-time that want to get a bachelor's of nursing degree or a master's in and become a nurse practitioner, but they couldn't afford to do so because they have to work full-time. And this program provides scholarship money to them so that they don't have to work full-time and that they can have the time and the money to advance their education. And that absolutely would be something that Congresswoman Johnson would be interested in. And I think she would be delighted that that program's being renamed with her name on it. I know Kirk wants to talk about the Eddie Bernice Johnson Lives Foundation. There's a website that's up for the Eddie Bernice Johnson Lives Foundation, and I'll let Kirk tell you a little bit more about that, and then we'll open the floor for questions.
Well, as we move forward, and we are prepared to move forward. We want her impact to still be felt in this community. There are many organizations, initiatives that she had intended to respect, serve, and contribute to. We also plan to, we will have various fundraisers, but we want to recognize people and efforts in our community that did what she did, and that is be a unifier. She lived her life wanting to serve this community and to be a unifier in this community. So we will be looking for opportunities to continue that effort. The name of the foundation is the Eddie Bernice Johnson Lives Foundation. The website is ebjlives.org, and our email address is ebjlives@gmail.com.
Questions?
I know y'all spoke at length in January emotionally, without going back to that, but can you just kind of maybe, Mr. Johnson, from your family's perspective, how you're feeling about today and in the last 6 months and to go forward?
It's been tough, but again, we are ready to move forward.
So is Baylor Scott and White funding the foundation? Is that the connection here?
So Baylor Scott and White made an initial contribution. Actually, the first contribution to the foundation came from the family, and Baylor Scott and White is contributing to the foundation. And I mean, like I said, it was their idea. They've been great about it.
You won't say how much they're contributing, or if this is going to be a regular or funding, or is this a one-time donation that they made?
I'm not going to go into any details on that. I think that it's best for all parties involved for those details or financial amounts not to come out. The point of that foundation is going to be to make contributions to other charities, and I think that that Kirk, correct me if I'm wrong, but that you would invite organizations to apply to that foundation for grants.
That's correct.
And so particularly, the types of organizations that were involved in the community that Eddie Bernice Johnson supported and was involved with. For instance, she was involved with women's peace initiatives. She was involved with science and technology, particularly teaching of science and math to students in the community. And so those are the kinds of things that that this foundation is going to stand for. And I will just say that Baylor was very generous in the idea to have this, and in the support for the foundation. And we're happy about that. When we can do good deeds and avoid a lawsuit, that's a win-win for everybody involved.
Les, is there any overlap between the foundation and the scholarship that's named after her?
No, those are two separate things. The foundation is one that's set up by the family. It's run by the family. It will be basically Kirk, his wife, and his eldest son that will make decisions about the grants from the foundation. The scholarship program is completely Baylor, and completely will be run and administered by Baylor. They're simply honoring the Congresswoman by renaming the program or naming the program in her honor.
Do you
Her
feel like
encouraging-
this resolution in any way remedies or deters, what occurred to Congresswoman Johnson? The initial allegations, I know you don't want to go over them again, but were quite disturbing, and especially considering that she would have been a sort of a VIP patient, and if that's the kind of thing that would happen to her, then I can only imagine what someone who doesn't have her stature would undergo. Do you feel like this in any way addresses those initial concerns?
Well, you're completely correct about that. In that, if this can happen to the Congresswoman, it can certainly happen to anyone. And certainly one of the things we wanted to do was highlight that and see that some changes were made. And in the work that's been done on this, I have received some assurances of that the programs that are in place, the policies and procedures that are in place will be worked with and enforced to try to prevent this from happening to someone else.
Kirk,
Cheryl Smith, Texas Metro News. Just recently, last week, one of the organizations that the Congresswoman was a part of had their national convention here, and they recognized her. And actually, all this year, people have been recognizing the Congresswoman for her work. And there are also people in the community who are very angry still about what happened to her. Can you give a message to people who loved and supported your mother and let them know that you're at peace with everything?
Well, yes, we are at peace. We have to accept God's will. But her initiatives, her interest will continue to live.
and I remember the last time we were here, you mentioned that, your mother wanted you all to fight. What do you think she would say if she were here today and seeing the outcome?
I could address that if I can, and that is knowing her as I did, and Kirk, I'm sure will agree with this, is that, she believed in compromise, and she was very much a bipartisan leader. She passed historic legislation as chair of the Science and Technology Committee that was a bipartisan piece of legislation that will affect the country for many years to come. And so she would always want to have a compromise, peaceful resolution if she could. And believe me, I couldn't do this in good conscience if I couldn't go to sleep at night and think that Eddie Bernice would be proud of me for what we did.
So the limit you mentioned, I assume that's from the tort reform that happened whenever George W. Bush was governor. Is this resolution limited by that, or
Well, the point is that if we had brought a lawsuit, the lawsuit would be limited by that. And because of that, it's better, to be able to have the resolution without the lawsuit. I mean, we discussed this, I think, before. The cap would be $250,000 for pain and suffering, plus past medical bills and burial expenses. Those would be considered actual damages, and the cap is on non-economic damages, pain and suffering, and loss of consortium for the family. Even if the conduct was so egregious, the standard for punitive damages in Texas would be, number one, you'd have to have a unanimous jury for punitive damages. And number two, the punitive damages are limited to 2 times the economic damages or $750,000, whichever is greater. So when you have a case that involves the death of a retired person or a homemaker or a child, then really the punitive damages cap is going to be like $750,000. So you have and it's very hard to get a unanimous jury for punitive damages. I mean, I've done it on a few occasions, but it's a very difficult thing to do. So with those kinds of constraints that are there, it affects everybody in Texas that would have a medical malpractice claim. And because of that, you know, in a case like this, a peaceful resolution, in my opinion, is better than, you know, a resolution that could be achieved in a court of law on this. And that's why sometimes, as I said, the court of public opinion is more important than a court of law and what can be accomplished in a court of law. But the point is that the average Texan probably could not achieve a resolution when they're, you know, not a former congresswoman. And so the congresswoman wouldn't want that. And that's why I started out with, we've got a lot more work to do in order to really uphold her legacy. We have got to continue working so that those caps are changed so that every Texan could get a more favorable result for the loss of their loved one, and not just those that are related to a congresswoman.
Can you corroborate essentially what the Dallas Morning News article is that you mentioned? Is it hard for the average Texan to even get an attorney to take the case because of how difficult it is to succeed with one like that?
Absolutely, because the expenses that are involved and the attorney's fees that would be involved are prohibitive for a lot of the cases where there's only a $250,000 cap. You know, not everybody has a family member that's a medical malpractice lawyer that's willing to do this as you know, as they would for a member of their family, without regard to any of the economics.
Are we correct to assume that whatever settlement, undisclosed as it is, exceeds the state cap, hence the court of public opinion comment?
I can't further comment on that.
What are the time commitments that you received from the hospital system for the resolution?
I'm not exactly following you. What do you mean?
Did Baylor give you a sense of how long they would be involved in working with the foundation?
Well, I mean, Baylor's part, they have said that they will, you know, help with regard to trying to get additional donations to the foundation down the road. So there's no time limit involved on that. It's you know, what they want to do and how much more they want to do. You know, it took us a little bit of time to get to the point of this resolution. I think we really lost 2 months in getting to this point because 1 month because of my schedule and 1 month because of the other lawyers that were involved and things that were going on with their schedules. So, you know, when we had the original conference on this, we talked about sending a notice letter, and that the law in Texas on medical malpractice cases is that the purpose of sending the notice letter and waiting 60 days before you can file suit is to give the parties an opportunity to resolve the matters before a lawsuit is filed. And in this case, it took a little longer than that, like I said, primarily due to my schedule and the other lawyers' schedules. But from the outset, there was certainly effort on behalf of Baylor and on behalf of the insurance company, the facility, to reach a resolution of this matter.
Did the creation of the foundation and the naming of the scholarship have anything to do with that delay? I know you mentioned that we were supposed to either see a resolution or a suit by April.
Yeah, well, like I said, I think we're 2 months behind because of my schedule and the other lawyers' schedule and issues that came up. Some of the lawyers that were working on this, one of them lost his mother in the process of this, and that same lawyer had a skiing accident, and so that put us a little further behind time-wise. But there's been cooperation, I'm happy to say, from the outset. I think that that all parties involved have tried to do the right thing, and I'm actually very proud and happy with Baylor for trying to do right after what we thought was something that was done wrong, as we detailed in our prior press conference.
Mr. Johnson, was there anything we didn't ask that you want people to know about, going forward, and people who love your mom, just kind of leaving that out there for you?
Well, remember the impact that she has had. Remember the people that she is trying to serve. And we will continue to try to live up to that legacy.
On a side note, Wes, you said that you had a similar surgery as a congresswoman. I wanted to know just how you were doing.
Well, my surgery was not as complex as hers was. Mine was relatively simple, and of course, I'm a little bit younger, and so I had a really good recovery in about a week. We had the same orthopedic surgeon, Dr. Park, and I actually recommended Dr. Park to the Congresswoman, and I thought Dr. Park did an excellent job. The Congresswoman was up and walking 2-3 days after her surgery, and I think Dr. Park was as upset as anyone with regard to all this, and certainly did everything he could do to go to bat for his patient.
And you put out a call concerning the medical negligence damages cap to lawmakers, encouraging action on this. Have you had any conversations with lawmakers, or do you plan to as we come up on the next legislature session?
Absolutely. I've had conversations with a number of people and organizations, and I know that there will be organizational support that will get involved with this, consumer groups, the NAACP, trial lawyer groups, but that's not who we need to get this done. Well, who we need to get this done is Republican legislators and organizations. And as I said before, this is not a Democrat or Republican issue. It shouldn't be. It's an issue for people that are victims of malpractice. And, Texas is a Republican state. And so I would tell you that probably there are as many or more Republicans that are victims of medical malpractice and lose their loved ones as there are Democrats. And that's why this should be a bipartisan issue, so that anyone who has a loved one that is killed as a result of medical malpractice is not constrained by an onerous, unfair cap. And the least that can be done is to have that cap adjusted for inflation so that the families can recover at least an amount that would keep up with inflation. I mean, increasing that cap from 250,000 to 500,000 would do a world of good for families, and it would not increase healthcare costs. It would not increase premiums for physicians. It really wouldn't, because there's just fortunately not that much involved in doing that. And it is a false narrative to say that if we increased the medical malpractice cap from 250,000 to 500,000, that it would have any effect on increasing healthcare costs. And we can look to other states to see that. And in fact, we have a number of other southern states that do not have caps on medical malpractice damages, including Arkansas, Alabama, Oklahoma. The cap was struck down by the Oklahoma Supreme Court. Georgia, the cap was struck down by the Georgia Supreme Court. So there are a number of other states where there is no cap, and where the cost of health care is certainly not increased, and the doctors have not fled, and the premiums have not gone up. And so that's important for this. And that's why we're going to stay after this, and we're going to be after this now and through the upcoming legislative session. But, I certainly can't do it by myself. I need all the help I can get. And believe me, the family's going to stay involved with this as well.
Okay, so before
Anything
tort
else?
reform, I mean, plaintiff attorneys, they sue everybody, the hospital, every doctor, any nurse. And so you're saying that the other states that don't have that, they're doing better than what we would do with the $50,000, $500,000.
First of all, lawyers that take these cases don't sue everybody. They sue everybody that's responsible. One of the things about our law and the law in a lot of states is you can't bring a medical malpractice lawsuit unless you have expert witnesses that file reports that say that there's merit to the case. So these caps don't affect frivolous cases. These caps affect legitimate cases. And what I'm saying is, in other states where there are not caps, or where the caps have been adjusted to inflation, the healthcare costs are not any higher. That's what I'm saying.
So really, what changes can we make that are best for, Texans, and, to ensure that their safety, and to hold the people responsible? What suggestions are you?
Well, the number one suggestion that I'm making is that the cap, needs to be increased. And look, the way this cap was structured, and the way this law was structured, and it may have been an unintended consequence, but there's actually an economic incentive to kill patients. Because if the patient dies, then the recovery is more limited than if a patient is maimed and needs medical care for the rest of their lives. Then you can recover for the future costs of medical care. You can recover if somebody was working and it's resulted in them losing, wages or earning capacity. But if someone dies, then the recovery is limited, so much so that there's actually an economic incentive to kill. And whether that's, recognized, and we would hope that it's not. Doctors take an oath to do no harm, so that shouldn't be in their minds. But it's there. It's there. And that shouldn't be there, and that should be addressed. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And you all got, hopefully you all got the handouts
Yes.
with about the scholarship program. And you got a copy of our press release. So thank you very much for coming again. And once again, we hope a lot of good will come out of this.
And one final thought, in a few weeks, her autobiography, Desire to Serve, will be published. So we look forward to sharing that.
Is that gonna be in bookstores or is that online?
It'll be in bookstores and online.
Thank you. If anyone needs a release of this document emailed, just give me your email and I'll be happy to do that. Good to see